Japan is bracing for more aftershocks following a series of earthquakes on New Year's Day. Authorities have now confirmed at least 30 people killed, and it's feared that that number could rise as rescue crews struggle to reach some of the hardest hit areas. Dozens of tremors shook Japan's west coast, hitting the Ishikawa Prefecture. The strongest had a magnitude of 7.6. And more than 30,000 homes were left without power, but the government says nuclear power plants were not affected. The Army has been called in to help with rescue operations and nearly 100,000 people ordered to leave their homes.
Firefighters worked to extinguish the blazes in the center of Wajima, a city in Japan's Ishikawa region, after a series of earthquakes shook the coastal area on Monday. The authorities said dozens of stores and houses were damaged in the fires that followed. The death toll is expected to rise as troops and rescue teams reach the worst affected areas. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida set out what helicopter surveys have found so far.
I have received reports that very large-scale damage has been confirmed, including numerous human casualties, building collapses, and fires.
Almost 100,000 people had to leave their homes and stay in shelters, like this gym. Japan's meteorological agency warned that more strong shocks could hit in the coming days. On a day where many Japanese gather at shrines to offer prayers for the new year, the quake measuring 7.6 magnitude struck in the afternoon. And dozens of smaller quakes followed. With roads damaged and buildings destroyed, the more remote northern parts of Ishikawa are inaccessible, and the Prime Minister called the efforts to rescue the survivors a battle against time.
Let's speak to journalist Sonia Blaszka in Tokyo for more. Sonia, the death toll has been rising as search and rescue teams are arriving on site. And I understand access to isolated areas has been a problem. Have they now been able to reach some of those most affected areas?
To be honest, it's even difficult to tell here because also the news outlets are not able to go there and report because everything's blocked, and we've basically had to rely on helicopter images as well. Thankfully, because of the cancellation of the tsunami warning, now they can access the area from the sea because that was an issue when the tsunami warning was still in place. So that is an option. But a lot of roads are damaged. There are numerous reports and images of landslides blocking roads, even cars under those landslides. A lot of buildings are collapsed and toppled over. Only just an hour ago, I saw images from the Wajima city area that was burned really badly. That has only been able to kind of crews only were able to access that very recently. So I think because the scale of the earthquake is so big, stretching over 6 prefectures, it's really difficult to assess the full scope of this catastrophe yet.
So information still trickling in, but at this point, can you already give us more of a sense of how badly affected Japan has been and in which areas? I mean, how does it compare to last earthquakes that Japan has experienced?
I mean, on the intensity scale, the Japanese one, this was a level 7, the highest level. So the ground shook really violently, and people said they've never experienced something like this in this area before. I mean, compared to the worst disaster that we've seen in 2011, it's still on a different scale, thankfully. But despite Japan being used to earthquakes and landslides and natural disasters in general, this is really one of the bigger ones. And I think the coming days will probably show that as well.
And what else can we expect in the coming days? Is there still a high risk of aftershocks?
Yes. So the meteorological agency has been warning that another level 7 earthquake could hit the region. I mean, the sheer number of earthquakes in the past 24 hours has been really intense. There were so many warnings. Really, every 10 minutes there was another warning sent out to the mobile phones, which is really not something that even Japan is used to. And thankfully, the country has relatively good building standards. So even a quake of that size, if you compare it to other countries, does relatively little damage. But a lot of old houses have collapsed because the roofs are really, really heavy. And that's an ongoing issue, even, now when the aftershocks continue.
Sonia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. That is journalist Sonia Blaschka in Tokyo.